Tijuana, Mexico. Tijuana sits right on the U.S. border, a gateway city where opportunity collides with desperation. For the cartels, it is the crown jewel, one of the most valuable trafficking corridors in the world. Cocaine, meth, heroin, and fentanyl flow north, while cash and weapons come south. Control over this border means power, and that makes Tijuana one of the deadliest cities on earth. Rival cartels fight openly in the streets, assassins patrol neighborhoods, and shootouts erupt in bars, markets, and even near schools. The murder rate in Tijuana has increased to thousands per year, making it statistically more dangerous than many war zones. Victims are often not just gang members. Ordinary residents, shop owners, and bystanders get caught in the crossfire. Police forces are underfunded, and corruption runs deep, leaving people with little trust in justice. For locals, survival means adapting. Many avoid going out at night, paying protection fees, or simply staying silent. For visitors, the danger is not always visible, but just beyond the tourist districts, families live in constant fear. Tijuana is Mexico's most violent city. Caracas, Venezuela. Caracas has lived through one of the most dramatic rises in urban violence of the modern era. Venezuela's economic collapse triggered hyperinflation, shortages of food and medicine, and the breakdown of institutions that once kept order. In that vacuum, gangs and armed groups known as colectivos expanded their control, often acting with political connections. The homicide rate in Caracas has repeatedly ranked among the highest worldwide. Kidnappings, robberies, and carjackings are common, and many residents avoid public transport after dark. Even during the day, streets that were once safe can change quickly. Police forces are often implicated in the violence, with special units accused of carrying out extrajudicial killings during raids in poor neighborhoods. For families, survival often means leaving. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled Caracas for Colombia, the United States, and beyond, seeking safety and stability. Those who remain live with restrictions imposed not by government but by gangs, with local bosses deciding when shops open and when residents can move freely. Caracas continues to operate as the political and economic heart of Venezuela, but its reputation is shaped by statistics that show violence at a level few other cities in the world have ever experienced. Aleppo, Syria. Aleppo was once a jewel of civilization, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. For centuries, its markets bustled with traders, its mosques and churches stood side by side, and its citadel towered above the skyline. But in 2012, Aleppo became the epicenter of Syria's brutal civil war. The battle for Aleppo lasted years and became one of the bloodiest urban conflicts of the 21st century. Government forces, rebels, and foreign powers fought street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. Airstrikes flattened entire districts, artillery turned apartment blocks into rubble, and civilians were trapped in sieges where food and water became weapons. Hospitals were deliberately bombed, and aid convoys struggled to reach the starving. When the city finally fell to government forces in 2016, Aleppo was no longer the city it had been. Tens of thousands had been killed, and millions displaced. Today, some residents have returned to rebuild, but danger still lingers. Mines, unexploded shells, and instability make recovery slow and perilous. Aleppo is not dangerous because of gangs or crime. It is dangerous because war tore apart its foundations. Chernobyl, Ukraine. Chernobyl became a synonym for danger after the catastrophic nuclear accident of April 1986. When reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, it released radioactive material that spread across Europe. The nearby city of Pripyat was evacuated within 36 hours, and the broader exclusion zone was created soon after. Tens of thousands left their homes, never to return. Radiation turned Chernobyl into a ghost city. Buildings remain abandoned, classrooms still contain children's notebooks, and amusement rides rust in silence. While levels of radiation have decreased over time, dangerous hotspots persist. Forest fires occasionally re-release radioactive particles into the air, and contaminated soil and water remain long-term hazards. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Chernobyl once again became unstable. Military activity inside the exclusion zone disturbed contaminated ground, raising concerns about renewed radiation exposure. Workers at the site were held under harsh conditions, highlighting how the zone remains vulnerable decades later. Chernobyl today is visited by researchers, soldiers, and tourists on controlled trips, but it remains one of the most dangerous urban areas ever created, not because of crime or war alone, but because the land itself has been poisoned by human technology and can never be fully restored to safety. St. Louis, United States. St. Louis consistently records the highest homicide rate of any major city in the United States. With a population of fewer than 300,000, The number of murders each year gives the city a rate higher than many Latin American capitals. The violence is concentrated in specific neighborhoods, often tied to decades of segregation, poverty, and disinvestment. Gun violence is the dominant threat. Drive-by shootings, retaliatory killings, and disputes fueled by drugs and turf wars leave entire communities traumatized. Families in the most affected areas adjust routines around safety, teaching children to avoid certain blocks and to stay indoors when the sun sets. Police efforts have been hampered by strained community relations. Allegations of misconduct and racial bias have left deep mistrust, while officers themselves face understaffing and limited resources. Federal programs and community-led initiatives attempt to curb violence, but progress is uneven. St. Louis's downtown and tourist areas remain relatively secure, but the divide inside the city is sharp. For many residents, danger is not spread evenly across the map, but concentrated in neighborhoods where generations have grown up with violence as a constant presence. Acapulco, Mexico. Acapulco once sparkled as the jewel of the Pacific. Celebrities, politicians, and the wealthy flocked to its beaches, filling hotels that symbolized glamour and escape. But beneath the glitter, poverty spread across the hillsides, and when Mexico's drug routes shifted, Acapulco became the new front line of cartel wars. Today, Acapulco has one of the highest homicide rates in the world. The same beaches that once hosted Hollywood stars are now lined with police checkpoints. Cartels fight not only for drug shipments, but also for control of neighborhoods, extortion rackets, and even small businesses. Restaurant owners are forced to pay protection money, bus drivers are threatened, and anyone who refuses risks becoming another statistic in a city drowning in bloodshed. For residents, danger is everywhere. Shootings erupt in broad daylight, kidnappings target workers and tourists, and bodies are sometimes left in public as warnings. The government has deployed soldiers to the streets, yet violence persists, fed by corruption and the sheer profitability of the drug trade. Acapulco's story is tragic. A place once known for beauty and wealth now makes headlines for murder and fear. Gaza, Palestine. In most cities, danger comes from gangs, crime, or poverty. But in Gaza, danger comes from the skies, the sea, and the land all at once. For nearly 2 million people packed into one of the most densely populated areas on Earth, survival has become a daily struggle. Homes are destroyed by airstrikes, streets are shattered by shelling, and hospitals collapse under the weight of thousands of wounded. Today, Gaza is recognized by leading human rights groups, genocide scholars, and international legal bodies as the site of an ongoing genocide. Amnesty International and the International Association of Genocide Scholars have concluded that Israel's actions meet the legal definition under the UN Genocide Convention. The International Court of Justice has ordered urgent measures to prevent further atrocities. Water, food, and electricity are scarce, and families face starvation as infrastructure is systematically destroyed. Children grow up knowing little but war and loss. Gaza is not dangerous because of gangs or crime. It is dangerous because daily life itself has been turned into a struggle for survival under genocide. Cape Town, South Africa. Cape Town is known for its mountains, beaches, and wine estates, but beyond the tourist image lies one of the most violent urban environments in the world. Gang warfare dominates large parts of the Cape Flats, a sprawling area shaped by apartheid-era forced removals. Poverty, unemployment, and overcrowding created fertile ground for organized crime, and today, dozens of gangs compete for territory. Shootings are a regular occurrence, often in broad daylight, and sometimes involving automatic weapons. Children walk to school through streets where stray bullets are a constant threat. Residents in certain neighborhoods avoid leaving home after dark, while shopkeepers and taxi drivers pay protection fees to survive. The police presence is heavy, but trust is low. Corruption scandals and allegations of excessive force undermine community cooperation. Military deployments have occasionally been used to stabilize neighborhoods, but violence continues to shift from one area to another. Despite the violence, Cape Town remains South Africa's most visited city, with tourism concentrated in relatively secure areas. For many residents, however, life is lived under the shadow of gang conflict, where survival depends on navigating invisible borders drawn not by governments, but by criminal organizations. Kabul, Afghanistan. Kabul has experienced decades of war, regime changes, and instability, making it one of the most volatile capitals in the world. Bombings and attacks have repeatedly struck government offices, schools, mosques, and crowded marketplaces. Ordinary commutes can turn deadly without warning. The city has changed hands many times, from Soviet occupation to civil war, Taliban control, NATO intervention, and the Taliban's return in 2021. Each shift has brought new rules and uncertainties. For residents, This means adapting constantly, adjusting to checkpoints, curfews, and shifting restrictions on daily life. Crime overlaps with politics. Extortion, kidnappings, and smuggling thrive in an environment where institutions are weak. Women face severe restrictions on work, education, and mobility, adding another layer of risk to everyday existence. Journalists and activists continue their work under constant threat of arrest or violence. Basic services struggle to function. Electricity is unreliable, healthcare is limited, and unemployment fuels desperation. For those with means, leaving is often the only option. For millions of others, life in Kabul continues under the weight of insecurity, where danger is not just a statistic, but an unavoidable part of the city's identity. San Pedro Sula, Honduras. For years, San Pedro Sula was labeled the murder capital of the world. Located on a key drug transit route toward the United States, it became a battleground for gangs such as MS-13 and Barrio 18. These groups controlled neighborhoods, imposed taxes on businesses and bus drivers, and punished anyone who refused to pay with death. Homicide rates soared to some of the highest ever recorded in peacetime, with entire communities living under gang-enforced curfews. Families avoided specific streets, and children were recruited into criminal groups from an early age. Police forces, often underpaid and corrupt, were unable to provide consistent protection. In recent years, increased militarization and government crackdowns have reduced the official homicide rate, but the city remains dangerous. Extortion continues, disappearances are frequent, and violence shifts into new forms whenever pressure rises. For many residents, the only escape has been migration. Thousands left San Pedro Sula as part of the migrant caravans heading north, citing violence as the main reason. Those who remain adapt to a reality where gangs shape everyday life as much as official institutions. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the